Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, and absolute pleasure to be with you from home base again. Hopefully it will at least improve the audio quality and maybe other things about the video. Although there is the risk, I've got Plumber coming at some point, and they said between 8 and 2. That's a heck of a window to give themselves, isn't it? 6 hours? Anyway, that means I can't tell when they'll be here. And hopefully they won't interrupt this video, where we will be looking at another puzzle by Abdul the Killer, who has been recommended to us again, and we've done a few of Abdul's puzzles before. It's a quite aggressive pseudonym, but they're no more so than Killer Sudoku, I suppose. And really looking forward to giving this a go. I'll do the rule set in a minute. It looks a little familiar. I will talk about that, I guess, in a moment. First of all, I do want to say, don't forget that we have all of our apps on the link under the video. There is a very new one out. It's called CTC's Approachable Sudoku. Previously, we've had Very Approachable Sudoku. We're now calling it Approachable Sudoku, and there's just one of those. Some great puzzles by some great constructors, Wessel Strijkstra, Kane Puzzles, James Sinclair, Mr. Menace, and Florian Wortmann. So fabulous stuff there. Do check out all of our apps. There are a wide variety of Sudokus available in those. And of course on Patreon we have all sorts of other content, crosswords, connections, a new one today, and I dare say many other things, some very hard Sudoku solves and some interesting packs of puzzles too. So there's always good content on Patreon. Check it out. And on the 1st of next month, we'll have a new pack of puzzles for you to attempt, with a prize even. So what else have we got going on? Well, yeah, as well as Sven's Sudoku pad and our merchandise, like this rather marvelous mug that I'm using at the moment. We got a fascinating email the other day. I'm sure Simon will feature this at some point. Sindre in Norway, long-time fan, sent us an incredible picture. They've always been a big Sudoku fan since they found the channel. I mean, great news. And they decided to commemorate 2 of their favourite puzzles in tattoo form. I kid you not. Look at that. That is Sindre's body. And that is Faulty Towers by Peter Hayward, combined with a puzzle by James Sinclair from the easier end of the spectrum. And I am blown away. I mean, I'm a Sudoku fan. I would not get a tattoo. Not of that. Probably not of anything. Anyway, there you go. That just shows how hidebound and boomerish I am. But Sindre has a tattoo, and we congratulate them on it. What a fascinating development, I'm going to say. Anyway, let's move on to today's puzzle. Time flies like an arrow, ... Now, time flies like an arrow, ... is the beginning of a saying. A saying? A joke? A linguistics demonstration, perhaps. Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana, where it is amusing because in the first sentence you start with time flies like, and that's noun, verb, adverb. Whereas in fruit flies like a banana, it's noun, or it's actually adjective, noun, verb. And it's because fruit flies enjoy bananas, whereas time flies in the manner of an arrow, which it doesn't really. Anyway, it's a great saying. I think we've had it on the channel before in some form, weirdly. I think there's been a puzzle with something like, I think Philip Newman used both ends of the saying for 2 different puzzles. Now, let's do the rules. Normal Sudoku rules apply, 1 to 9 in every row, every column, and every 3x3 box. In the completed grid, cells containing a number exactly one greater than an immediate neighbour, diagonal or orthogonal, within their box are shaded. And if they don't, they're not shaded. Now, that means let's just put the numbers 1 to 9 in this box. This wasn't random, and I should have done it randomly. Okay, now the 9 is not shaded because it doesn't touch the 8, either orthogonally or vertically. It's not a king's move away from the 8. But the 8 is shaded because it touches the 7. The 7 touches the 6. The 6 touches the 5. In fact, they all touch the number below them, except the 1 will never touch the number below it because there isn't a number below it in the box. So we're only looking within the confines of the box, and all of those cells would be shaded in this case. But that's partly because I drew them in connecting cells, which was a very silly way of doing it. Now, incredibly, there is also a yin-yang rule. So the shaded cells in the final grid will form a single orthogonally connected region, as do the unshaded cells, and no 2 by 2 region is wholly shaded or unshaded. This is the yin-yang rule that we sometimes see in use. I'm going to try and draw well, I messed it up there. Let's see if I can recover at all. No. I was going to try and draw you an example of how it might work, this yin-yang rule. So I'm avoiding 2 by 2s as carefully as I can. This might get the job done. There. If the area I have highlighted was shaded, it's one connected segment. If the unshaded area is one connected segment, neither has any 2 by 2s. So that is the yin-yang rule, and we have to obey that as well. Then all we've got left is these arrows in the grid. Values in cells with arrows, or digits in cells with arrows, give the number of shaded cells in the indicated direction. All possible arrows are given. So if this was a 3, then 3 of these cells are shaded, and 3 of these cells, exactly. All possible arrows are given means that if this was a 3, then it's not possible for exactly 3 of those cells to be shaded, or 3 of these cells, or 3 of these cells, because there's no arrow, which is a worrying negative constraint, because it would be quite difficult to scan for, I imagine. Now, talking about worrying, this is a very familiar rule set. And when I say very familiar, I mean, I think I've done one puzzle like this once before. And I think it might have been by Abdul the Killer. And I just want to think about whether I've done this puzzle before. Because I don't remember it going with these arrow symbols. Oh, now I've just noticed the arrow symbol in row 3, column 8 has one leg longer than the other. That's the sort of thing I'm never going to be able to unsee. That's strange. Anyway. Oh, no, yeah. Sorry, my brain is cogitating gradually. The one we did by Abdul the Killer before, that featured, I think, this rule set, had some daisy cells, which presumably they referred to the number of cells around them that were shaded. This one is therefore different. Yes, and I remember that because I did something in the thumbnail about Abdul the Killer and daisies being killed. I can't remember. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what happened, but okay, so Abdul's used this rule set before and he's using it again, but he's combining it with a different other rule. And therefore it is a completely new puzzle for the channel. That's the relief. I don't want to be redoing a puzzle I've done before, even though it might be quite instructive. I'm going to be doing this puzzle, and I'm finally going to be starting now with no idea how to start. Let's get cracking. Oh my goodness, the little arrows have moved now. When I press restart, that's really strange. Okay, give me a moment. There we are. They're back in place. I don't understand what happened there. That's very strange. Anyway, we are going to solve it on this grid, where the arrows are in the right places. Some odd glitch occurred there. Anyway, right. The clock has started. We're 25 seconds in. I haven't thought yet. I'm going to think now. Okay, so how? Okay, well, the arrows pointing to very short areas can't have a 0 digit in, so that is a 1 or a 2. And either one of those two cells is shaded, or both. Now, that's another 1 or a 2. Oh, that's a 1. And these two cells are both shaded. Right. That is going to bring in one of the rules that I think may well matter. Not a rule. So a precept or a function of yin-yang puzzles, which I'm going to introduce to you now. Now, this is that the perimeter of a yin-yang puzzle is only going to have two different runs of colour, one shaded and one unshaded. At the most, it could actually have only one, but let's assume that there are two. And I'll explain why there can't be more than two. Say that area was shaded and that area was shaded, which is what I'm saying can't happen, because there would now be 4 runs of colour in the perimeter. To connect those up, you would have to block off the connection between the unshaded areas. And this is a function of yin-yang puzzles, and so that is impossible just by virtue of that fact. There is a way of connecting them up without blocking off the unshaded areas, but that's by using the whole perimeter. So that's what I'm trying to say. Now, the other interesting thing is, or another interesting thing, as well as 2x2s being forbidden by rule, so those couldn't both be shaded, you end up getting checkerboards forbidden by rule. So these two couldn't both be unshaded. As you can see, trivially in this case, this cell would get cut off and couldn't join up to the unshaded cell there. So that would be illegal. But actually, that applies even if you were looking at this 2x2 region. If they were both shaded and they were both unshaded, to join the shaded cells up, you would cut off one of the unshaded regions. And to join the unshaded cells up, you would cut off one of the shaded regions. So if we get going, we will be, first of all, making sure the perimeter only has one shaded region in it. We now know there is at least one shaded region in it, just from this one. And we will also be avoiding checkerboards. So I just spell that out from the start. Now, this is 2 or 3, because it sees very few cells, but it does see a 1. This is 1 or 2. I'm going to say straight away that that's not a 2, because if all of these were shaded, then within this region, you either have to cut off an unshaded cell or more, or they're all shaded and that gives you 2x2. So that must be a 1, which doesn't enable me to shade these cells, but nonetheless, facts is facts. Now this is 1, 2, or 3. I was going to find all the low value. That's looking at 5 cells. Maybe that's too many. Maybe I will stop at 4. So this one sees a maximum of 4. Again, this can't be 4 because they'd all be shaded and they'd cut off an area, and there must be unshaded cells both inside and outside that area. This is 1, 2, 3, or 4. We've nearly got 4 of them in the central column, but not quite. Oh, is that really all of the very shortly pointing arrows, or have I missed one somewhere? That's the ones I was planning to colour that are 1 to 4. Planning to candidate number. Now, what's this telling us? One of each of those is shaded. Oh, okay, this would be interesting. If this is not a 4 down here, then some of these are shaded and some of them are not. Yeah, okay. I think that cells with arrows pointing along the perimeter are more interesting than others, because if that's not a 4, some of these are shaded and some are not, and therefore this is one of the places where there is a transition between shaded and unshaded, and we want to find those places. I mean, actually, I can shade this in straight away, because if this was a white cut-off cell, all of these would be shaded by the perimeter rule, and then this white would be cut off from other whites that must inhabit the middle. So that's shaded. This is now unshaded. Let's use yellow, because we have to avoid 2 by 2s. It doesn't get me very far, but it's a start to my shading problem. At least one of those is shaded, one of those is shaded, one of those, one of those. In all cases, that's some in the perimeter. Well, no, that's either putting pressure, either that's shading into the perimeter or putting pressure not to. Now, some of these must be shaded because there is a number in here pointing upwards, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I am tempted to say I don't know. I was tempted to say that we must shade that many cells, but I'm not sure I have the proof of that, so I need to find some other way to really get going. I haven't found one yet. Numbers in the perimeter pointing away from them, they're not that helpful. I suppose these two have to be different, and that means there are shaded cells in that region and in that region, because of what they have to count. Similarly, that is a bigger number than that. Or maybe it was these 3 down the central column. What are they doing for me? No. This or this. 1 or 2 of those are shaded. One of these, one of these. Bother, I don't know how to use this yet. This is 2, 3, 4. Well, it can't be 6 because they can't all be shaded, because we know that one isn't. So that is a bit reduced. Oh, either 2 or 3 of these are shaded, and one of those is shaded. Now, if that was a 3, these would all be shaded. And then the shaded area would have to join up around the long side of the perimeter. It's not impossible, it's just very unlikely. And that's if this was a 3. This would have to happen. I don't know. It's not impossible at the moment. It just doesn't seem very likely at all. Sorry, I'm sure there's a way to get going on this. Do I know anything about shaded and unshadedness of the perimeter in this whole area? Because I don't feel I do, annoyingly. If that was a 2, they'd both be shaded. Oh, I see. Well, that is interesting, because then this would have to be an area where there was a change of colour in the perimeter, because if they're both shaded, they're not allowed to both be shaded. So if that was a 2, we would definitely have a change of shading up here. Maybe that's somehow what I have to look for, is places where there must be changes of shading in the perimeter. Box 9 looks like the most likely place to find such. If that's a 3, yes, it's the same deal. We must have a change of shading around here, because if those are all shaded, those must include unshaded to avoid 2x2s. If that's a 2 though, then 2 of these are shaded. One of those it seems like there are ways out of that, so I don't think I'm getting the idea quite. Just keep thinking. This one can only be 2, 3, or 4 at this point, which is a bit restricted as well. And oh, I haven't been thinking about the rule. The other rule about cells containing numbers exactly 1 greater than an immediate neighbour are shaded. Of course. Now, this 1, what about the central position in each box? It always touches all the cells outside it. So it must touch the number beneath it. And the only way it can avoid touching the number beneath it, the number beneath it in sequence, is if it is a 1 and doesn't have 1. Well, in this column, those 2 central cells can't be 1s because we got the 1. And in this row, those 2 central cells can't be 1s. And now we must have a change of colour around here. No, we must have some unshaded around here. And we must have some unshaded around here. Because if they were all shaded, that would be a 2x2. Same here. So there must be some unshaded in both of those sections. And given that we've got shaded here, and I told you the rule about only 2 different coloured areas in the perimeter, I can unshade all of these cells, because there must be unshaded here, there must be unshaded here, and they must connect together. Bingo. There's the start. That was so obvious in a way, but I didn't realise that there was any value in thinking about this neighbours rule. But there really was. Right, we avoid a 2x2 with a shaded cell there. We now know this is a 1 because it's pointing at 1 shaded cell and 1 unshaded. This can't be a 4 anymore because there's unshaded there. Now, this is pointing at already more than 1 shaded cell. This, yes, I now can shade this and at least 2 cells here, because the shaded cells have to be in the south of this column. And that gives me a yellow there, unshaded, to avoid a 2x2. This is now a 2 or a 3. This, now I have to think about the rule as well. That might matter suddenly. The rule about neighbouring cells. I don't know how to use it yet, apart from the thing that I just did. The only way for that to be unshaded is if it's a 1. We've got that 1, so this isn't unshaded. So it is shaded, therefore it must touch its lower neighbour. I have a feeling I had to learn exactly that thing in that daisies puzzle before about the central cells, and I've clearly forgotten it and had to totally relearn it, which is a little bit irritating. Oh, this 1 is pointing at a shaded cell, which must be there, and here at a shaded and an unshaded. Now, could that be unshaded here and shaded here? Oh, this is pointing at least 2, so that is 2, and that is shaded, and that tells us about this 1. It gives us that as unshaded. That lets us fill in those 2. This is unshaded to avoid the 2x2, and we've completed the shading in a single box. That's not a 2 anymore by Sudoku. That's not a 2, so there are 3 shaded in the bottom row at least. Now, 2 in this box could go there, but it could also go in any of those. So I'm not good at using this rule. I hope it's not going to matter vastly, but I think it probably is. The yin-yang seems, I'm not great at yin-yang, but that seems easier to work with to me. Now, if that was a 3, these would all be shaded cells. That would be a 4, and there'd be 1 shaded there. I don't know. Okay, that's not what to do. Use the ones I've already got, but I've actually completed all of these areas they're pointing to. Okay, this is either a 3 or a 4, given what it's pointing at south. Yeah, that's interesting. This one has to be pointing at 1 shaded, at least 1. It can't be pointing at 2 shaded, or we'd have a 2 by 2. So that's a 1. Then there's going to be a 1 in one of those cells, which is unshaded, interestingly, because 1s always are. Oh, 1s are always unshaded. There's a useful little tip for myself. I'm going to make that unshaded because either both of those are unshaded if the 1 is there, or only that one if the 1 is there. What about 1s? One of these 2 is an unshaded 1. Don't know, but whichever way round it is, that one is unshaded, because either the unshaded reaches to that one or this one is the 1. There's a 1 in one of those cells which is already unshaded happily. Now, this 2, we don't know its colour. This is pointing at least 3 cells, up to 5. You may be much quicker than I am at working out how to use the rule, the neighbour's rule. I'm terrible at it. There's a lot of cells not touching their neighbours here. That's quite interesting. Come on. Oh, that is a 2. No, that doesn't tell me what itself is. This is 3 or 5 and is already pointing at 2 cells. This is at least a 2. That can be a 2 by the rule. If this was a 2, it would be grey. It would be shaded because it would touch the 1. And then that would have to be yellow to avoid the 2 by 2, and they'd all be yellow. If that's shaded, then that has to, okay, if that's shaded, that's unshaded because of the 1, then it has to be a 3 because of the neighbouring rule. So if that's shaded, that's an unshaded 3 that has to be not touching 2. I find it very complicated to work with this rule. Goodness gracious. And I haven't even thought, and maybe I should have, about the negative constraint at all yet, which is saying that, gosh, yeah, I mean, it's almost, the negative constraint might do some very interesting things. If that was a 2, for instance, that would have to be unshaded. Because otherwise there'd be a 2 arrow pointing north. That's interesting. Okay, there's probably an important way of using the negative constraint. That's going to matter. That's tricky. That is tricky. Where's it going to help? A lot of these places, the arrows are pointing so far that I don't know how it can help. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, what's this anyway? 1, 2, 3. Nah, I don't know. It could be up to 6, couldn't it? It's not interesting. Not interesting. This one is pointing at those, and this means that at least one of these is shaded because it's a different number. Oh, this is grey to get the shaded area out of here. I hadn't thought about that. And now this is at least 2. And therefore at least 2 of those are shaded. Now if that was a 3, all of these are shaded, definitely. Oh, that's grey to avoid a yellow 2 by 2. This is now pointing at one more cell than this is pointing at downwards. So that's 4 or 5. In fact, that could have told me that they were different quite quickly. Is this yellow or grey? I don't know. But, oh, this is also touching its neighbour. That's not, it's got to touch its neighbour. It's in the central cell. In fact, that must now touch its neighbour because it's not 1. So that's grey too. This is either 1 or 2 more than that, which makes it 3, 4, or 5 because of pointing left and adding those, adding those to whatever's in here. I want to go faster than this in this puzzle. I wish I was cleverer. I have a feeling whoever recommended it got the idea of the puzzle much more quickly than I. I have a feeling I might have got the idea of the daisies puzzle much more quickly than this as well. Disappointing. So is it yin-yang I should be doing, or is it neighbour's logic? I just don't know. The neighbour's logic is so annoyingly confusing to me. It doesn't let me fill in this box. I just don't believe that it does yet. Or this one, where these kind of might well be in a sequence, but I don't have enough information about that. I just don't think I do. If this was a 2, it has to be grey. And that has to be yellow. Oh, excuse me a second. And that is the plumber, who will be here before I'm finished with this puzzle. Bother. Well, I'm going to carry on. I'm afraid there's going to be a couple of edits. You can be assured I'm not cheating. I'm just dealing with a plumber. Right. Because I'm sure I'm not going to be finished in 20, 25 minutes when he claimed to be coming. Now, come on. If that was yellow, that would have to be yellow. And maybe there are just some deductions like this around. Oh, if that was yellow, this would be the 1, wouldn't it? If that was grey, this would be the 1. That's interesting. No, I don't know what that does. Come on. Come on. If that was 3, it would have to touch the 2 somewhere. The trouble is there's big areas in which digits do touch other digits within boxes, but quite big areas where they don't as well. What I'm saying is, for that, for instance, to be a 3, tells me that one of these cells is a 2, but that's a huge variety of cells. If, on the other hand, that was yellow and a 3, then I know one of those cells was a 2, and it just doesn't feel wildly helpful, especially as I don't know the colours of any non-1 digits yet. Okay, that is not a 1 or a 2. It's pointing at 3, 4 or 5 cells. This one. If that was grey, oh, I don't know. No, I don't know which cells to focus on. I'm making that very clear. Right, one of these is grey and one is yellow. That is a domino of one of each. If that's grey, I don't know what the number is, but that becomes a 2 because that becomes yellow and this is only pointing at 2 cells. That can be a 2 with the 1 there, that's fine. But it would be pointing at a 2 grey along this row as well. So there'd only be 1 grey cell in all of those. I don't know. Okay, if that was a 4, these would all be grey. That's fine though. There's just no difficulty about that. Maybe there's some holistic rule about a box that there have to be at least 3 grey cells in it or something. That would be amazing. But I don't see how that would apply. You could just jump back and forth with the digits that don't touch each other. Okay, let's have a think about this. If this was a 1, all of these cells would be yellow. We'd have a 3 at the bottom, a 2 at the top. That would be yellow as well. Grey would have to get out of everywhere. I can't see why there's a big problem anywhere. This is saying some of these are grey and some of those are grey. And what about this? I haven't thought about this digit. I don't think it's helpful. This is, okay, maybe a yellow that's got some numbers in it. That is not touching its lower neighbour. So if that's a 3, 2's in those cells. If it's a 4, 3's in those cells, etc. That's just not powerful. Okay, for that to be a 3, these would all be grey, and that would be a 4, 5 pair. If that was a 3, that's grey. And this is at least 4 or 5, and it's looking at 3 greys there, grey here and grey here. So if that's a 3, that's a 5, that's a 4. And then 3 of these would be grey, and that's quite difficult. We'd have to include those 2. Okay, for this to be a 5, it's quite difficult looking down here. In fact, this can't be a 5 looking downwards. It can be a 5 looking left, but not looking down, because all of those would be grey and they'd have created a 2 by 2. So that's not a 5. I think that means this can't be a 3, because that would be a 4. And that felt wrong, yes. And we'd be looking at, if this was a 3, that would be grey on the right of it to make those 3 grey. But there'd also be 3 grey there, plus those 2 makes that a 5. Right, so that's a 2. That's taken ages. But it's true. And now that's not a 2. I have a feeling it's unlikely to be 1, but unlikely is not buttering my parsnips. Now, 2 there makes this yellow in this direction. It also means 2 of those are grey, and that completes the count of a 3 here. That is touching its 2 in one of those cells in the box. That 2 must touch its 1. Now, 3 can't be in any of those cells because it would be the wrong colour. So 3 is in one of these cells by Sudoku, sort of, and is yellow. And then 3 is in one of those cells and is clearly yellow up there as well. So it's not touching 2, but... Oh, and we've got... No. I was wondering if 2 was now limited up here, but you could have 3 and 2 in those positions, I think, as long as that was 2. Ah, this grey has to get out. So that's become grey. And this digit is touching its lower neighbour. So it's either 2 or 4, 5 or 6. Not very interesting yet, but this could only be 5. No. It's difficult to get the reasoning the right way round. So one of these is grey and 2 of them are yellow. It can't be those 2 that are yellow. So that must be a yellow cell. And that's a domino, 1 of each. The negative constraint. I'd forgotten the negative constraint. Is that doing anything with any of these? Oh, look, 1. I only just realised that 1 meant that that had to be yellow because there's no number in it. Ah, that's interesting. The negative constraint might be powerful again. That is 1 fewer than that number. Goodness gracious, I don't find this an easy puzzle. Could I be making that any more obvious? Not much of the perimeter left to do. And this had to get out. Oh, we can't have a checkerboard, so that's great. Then we can't have a 2 by 2, so that's yellow. Now, the 3 grey under that are all done, so that's yellow. It doesn't tell me what this is, but never mind. At least we finished a column. This or this. I still don't know. 4 or 5. This is touching its lower number. Three has to be touching 2 there. We know 2 must be touching 1 there. That's not interesting. Keep looking everywhere, looking for inspiration, but I just have to ask the right questions, and they're very difficult to work out for me. Oh, okay. This can't be 3 anymore by Sudoku. I was just working out it couldn't be 3 by the negative rule, but that's pointless. Anyway, now, at least 4 of these are grey. So we need at least 2 more of these to be grey. If that was a 5, these are all grey. then these would have to be yellow. That would be a 3. A yellow 3. That can't be a yellow 3 because it's touching 2. So that can't be a grey 5. If that was a 5, they'd all be grey for the count. That would make these yellow for the rule, the yin-yang rule, and that would be a yellow 3, which is impossible. So that's not a 5, that's a 4. And now, unsurprisingly, 2 of these are grey and 1 isn't. If it was those 2 that are grey, again, these would both be yellow, same problem. So they're not both grey, so that's grey. And it's touching its 1, which is there now. That hasn't told me anything about 3 or 4. By Sudoku, there's a 2 in one of these cells. The 1 in, I don't know, there's a 1 in those cells. I bet it's in one of those 2 arrows, but I haven't got any actual real information on that. Now, if this was 3, it's grey, and that's a big problem, because that would be yellow on the count. So it's not 3. This would have to be grey if it was 3 because it's touching its 2, and then that would make yellow on the count. The perimeter would all be broken. So that is 4, and that's grey. And that 4 is also pointing north. This is one of each. I don't think that pointing north is helpful yet, actually, and I don't quite know where that perimeter ends. If that's yellow, that's grey, but if that's grey, that's yellow. This is a one of each pair. Now, if that was 1, these are all yellow. It just feels so unlikely, but I can't see why it's not right. Oh, the 4 is touching its 3 in this box. So 3 is in one of those cells, and that's not a 3. That's now a 4, and that's grey. And now that's a 5 by the count, and that's not a 5 by Sudoku. And this is also not a 2 because of the negative constraint. Pointing south, it would need an arrow, so that's a 6. Now 2 is in one of those cells, and one of these 3. And it's only potentially touching its 1 if the 1 is there. Now, what else is going on in this box? 3 is touching 2, 6 is touching 5, 5 must be touching 4. But then all we know is that we have to separate 7 and 8 and 8 and 9. And they could bounce back and forth, so not actually very helpful. 4, we know, is touching 3 down here. There's not a 4 here, and it's already seeing 4 cells, so it must be seeing 5, so that goes grey. We avoid the 2 by 2 with a yellow there. That's a yellow to avoid a 2 by 2 as well. 5 is not touching 4 in this box, so 4 is definitely here. And that tells me that all of these are grey. That's yellow to avoid a 2 by 2, that's grey to avoid a checkerboard. Ooh, that 1 doesn't have an arrow pointing north, so that's not a domino. And therefore these are the same colour. That's quite an interesting deduction. That 1 doesn't have an arrow pointing north. So this can't be 1 grey and 1 yellow. So these are the same colour, and they can't be grey or would have a 2 by 2. They're yellow. That's grey to avoid a checkerboard. That 3 is fulfilled, that 2 is fulfilled. It'd be marvellous if it suddenly got easier. I'm not expecting that. This can still... this is yellow now, so it can't be a 2 because it is touching the 1. So that's a 3 and that's grey. Okay, good. This 4 is pointing along here. That 4's correct, that 2's correct. This one is not a 4. If it was 5, there would be a 2 by 2 of grey. So that's a 3, and that's not. This is touching its neighbour, so it's grey, and that's now yellow to avoid a 2 by 2. And this is one of each, but the yellow has to get out. It's not just grey that has to get out. The yellow has to keep getting out. That was grey because of this 3. We now know that that's a 3. That's a 1 after all. I kept on speculating, what if these were all yellow, and they are. Those are both yellow. This yellow has to get out. That yellow is getting out. Also, they're not both yellow, or that one would have a north arrow. I am trying to use this rule. Oh, this can't be a 3, so it's 2 or a 1. So it must be a 2 pointing right there. And then one of these is grey and the other one isn't. Now, I will be thinking about the rule in a moment, because it's probably going to matter a lot, the neighbour's rule. But I was getting quite excited to fill so much this grid. That is grey to avoid a yellow 2 by 2. That's yellow to avoid a checkerboard. That's interestingly not got an arrow south. So these two are the same colour as each other. And this grey has to get out. Is that really a consideration? Probably not. The grey is all joined up apart from that pair. This yellow needs to join up either there or there. Oh, we've got a 1 there, so that's yellow. Oh, that, I feel that has to be grey as a result, but I'm not sure why I felt that. One of those is grey because it's a 2. Okay, excuse me again. The plumber's parking up, but I want to keep thinking about this for a moment or two. 3 by Sudoku, that's there. That's not. Now that is touching its neighbour, so it's grey. Oh, this might get easier, you know, if I can get some numbers in the grid. That's yellow to avoid a 2 by 2. That's grey to avoid a yellow 2 by 2. That's grey to avoid a checkerboard. Might finish the colouring at least before he turns up. Might not. 1 negative, no. 4 there makes that yellow. Thank you, 4. That has, I feel like it has to be grey, but that might not be true if these are both the same grey. Oh, that 2, it makes that yellow. That makes this grey to avoid the 2 by 2, and now we can tell from the shape that that is grey, and we have completed the colouring. Good. That's a 1. Can I complete all the 1s? No. Well, yes, I can, because that can't be a 1 because it's grey. 1s are always yellow. There we go. I've completed the 1s and lots of the 2s, but not all of them. So let's move on to the 2s. Let's see if we can rock and roll this way. There's a 2 in one of those touching its 1. 2 could be there, but it could be in any of these, so no. 2 could be there or there. Or, in fact, well, by Sudoku it can't be there. But it could be there or there. Or there. It is a bit weird how these relations work. That can't be a 3. In fact, this one has an arrow in, so I can fill in the number by just counting the digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grey cells. So one of these, this one's got a number in as well. It's a 5. There we go. So one of these is a 5, but it could be, oh, well, it's there by Sudoku. Now that and that can't be 5 because they wouldn't be yellow. They would be grey, so that's 5. That could be 5, that can't be, that could be in this box. It's so strange how this works. We're down to 5 in one of those 3, but we don't know where the 4 is in this box. Or do we? 4 could be there or there. Yeah, 4 can't be there or there by the rule. This is the only one that matters, but it's not touching the 3 in its box. So 4's in one of those 2 cells, which actually places 4 here. which is the correct colour. Encouraging. 4 is now, 4's in one of those cells, but that 5's yellow, so that places the 4. This is so strange, isn't it? 4 can't be there, because that would be the wrong colour, but it could be in any of those. Oh, there's an arrow in this. That's a 4. I mean, just spotting arrows would be a skill that might be of some use sometimes. I really think I've got them all now, but then I've thought that before. Okay, that could be a 6, that could be a 6, so could that couldn't. Anyway, I was going to do 1s, 2, I was going to be rigorous and do them in order, and I forgot, or I lost interest. Where's 2? 2's in one of those cells. It can be in either of those. It can be in any cell in this blooming box. And it can be there or there. Okay, 2's are no good to me. What about 3's? 3 is not touching 2 wherever it is. That's fine. That 4 is touching a 3, which is in one of those cells. And it's not there by Sudoku. So 3's in one of those 2. Oh, that was just Sudoku would have done that. But 3 I've put in one of these 3 for that 4. Yes, so that places that 3 at least. Now, if 3 is in one of those, it's touching the 2. But if it's there, it's not. That's not a 3, that's just Sudoku. One of those is a 3, so they must be touching the 2. I don't know how to use that. It's so weird, this. Four is okay in both of those. I've looked at that before. Oh, 4 by Sudoku is not okay there anymore. So that's 4, that's 2. One of these is a 2. Both of those are correctly coloured, but that's an X-wing on 2's, so I can place a 2 here. That means 2's in one of those cells. And that's not... That is the only cell not touching its lower neighbour in this box. And it's 6, 7, 8 or 9. I have a feeling I'm going to end up putting lots of 6, 7, 8, 9's in cells. Oh, 5 can't be there, so 5's in one of those 2. That plumber's going to be here any second. 5 can't be there, so it's in one of those 2. But that is not a good disposition. That means I can't resolve them. 6. Look, 6 can't be there or there, and it would be the wrong colour in those cells. So 6 is here, and that's a 6. 6. You're my friend suddenly. 6 can't be there, so it's in one of these 2 in box 8. Now, 6 can't be in either of those cells because it would be touching a 5. And it would be the wrong colour. So 6 goes there, and it must touch 5 in the box. So that sorts out all my 5's that I was worried about in the central 3 rows. That's all the 5's in the puzzle done. Have I done all the 4's? Yes, looks like I have. How are the 3's going? Not so well. 3's right in both of those cells. That's the problem, and it's right in both of those. Okay, that's no good. Now, there's very unlikely to be negative constraints with 6's, 7's, 8's, or 9's, so maybe I should look for them with 3's. They don't seem to apply up here. Oh, they do mean this couldn't be a 7, because look, there's 7 greys there. That's strange. Oh, but that couldn't have been a 7 anyway. It would be the wrong colour. Something must be touching 6, so that's a 2-7 pair. Interesting. Oh, maybe I should look at these central... No, I haven't got many central digits. So 8 and 9, they can't both be there. If that was 3, that would be an 8-9 pair, and they'd be the wrong... Well, 9 would be the wrong colour, so that's not 3. That's 3. One of these is 3, but 4 is touching it. So that's 3 and that's not. Oh, well, this is suddenly progress. Now, 7, 8 and 9 are here. That can't be 7 because it's the wrong colour for 6. So's that. So that's 7. This is 8 and 9. They are touching each other, so 9's the grey one. Ah, such an odd puzzle. This can't be 9 because it wouldn't be touching 8. Suddenly it does come together a bit. Isn't that strange? Well, it's strange to me. Now, 8 and 9 can't be separate, so that's not 6. Because 9 would be the wrong colour. So that's 6. Yeah, that's fine. This is 8 and 9. Don't know the order. That's not 6 now. This is 9. That's 8 in the top row. This is 8. This is 2, 7 and 9. 2's in one of those. 7 and 9, I don't know. They're going to be the right colour, so I can't really do much about those yet. In this row, I've got 6. That couldn't be 6, so that must be 9. Then 8 must be there, so 9 can touch it. 7 must be yellow because it's not touching 6, so they're that way round. So strange. 2 and 9 here. Is the order obvious? Not to me. 7 and 8 there. Right, they're touching each other, so 8 must be grey. Now 9 is touching 8, so it's there. That's now 9. That's 8. My goodness, I'm going to be finished before the plumber rings the bell, he said madly. That's 8, that's 9, 2, 6 and 7 here, 6 and a 2, 7 pair. One deadly pattern to resolve. 7 is grey, must touch 6 there. And there we go, this is the solution. What an extraordinarily tough puzzle. Wow, I mean, it's so clever though. Anyway, time suddenly does fly like an arrow. We're 53 minutes in. Well, a little bit of interruption there, very little actually. And not the full plumber interruption, hurrah. And we'll see you again for more Sudoku fun tomorrow. And now I get to go and deal with my plumber. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.